Hello good people, a new series on this channel, Fixing Fred. It sounds a bit like Breaking Bad, but without guns, violence, drugs and nudity, so there's probably no reason to watch at all. Fred is a Clutton Fred Mk3. I bought him last month. I will tell you why I bought him in a bit. I don't feel anyone's owed an explanation other than my wife. And you probably think I've got enough projects already, and maybe that's true, but that doesn't really matter. I had some quite good valid reasons to buy him, and I'll explain once we've run the engine. Quite regrettably, my neighbour who really appreciates extra noise is away at the moment, so I suppose I'll have to do this again in the future. The engine is a Volkswagen. It's a 1600cc single port. You can see it's got the single pipe there. It's got dual ignition, two Lucas SR4 magnetos here, Solex carburetor on the top, some quite effective Brooklyn style mufflers. I was a bit surprised when I ran yesterday how good it was. I haven't changed the oil. The oil is really clean. Before I ran it, I took the oil filter off because I wanted to see if the pump was actually working properly, and it was. As soon as I turned the prop, oil poured out of the pipework here. And I took the valve covers off, made sure it didn't have any stuck valves. And in fact, when I turned the prop, then as well, oil came out of there because it was being pumped around the system. I've had all the plugs out. I cleaned the points on the magnetos, and I rigged up the fuel tank from the Pete and Pole Ford because the fuel tap is stuck. We'll look at that in a bit. So I think without further ado, I've got a couple of logs under the wheels. I can't run it at the moment with the wings unfolded because of that fuel tank, which is clamped to the center section. So bear with me. Let's see if it goes. I moved you back a bit. Right, that's the petrol on, and it's running down through. Throttle. Well, in fact, I'm going to put the mags on now, and it has an accelerator pump. So I was told to give it 5 or 6 squirts. So it's on 5 or 6 squirts. I'm not going to use the choke. Let's see how we get on. Well, wasn't that splendid? And who says the camera never lies? I actually managed to stop the thing whilst I was running it. I was messing around in here and I pulled the choke on. I hadn't used the choke at all. And I just thought, oh, I wonder if it'll make it run a bit rich, see if black smoke or anything. Anyway, I pulled it out a little bit. Nothing, a bit further, and it stopped dead. So I managed a hot start, which I didn't manage yesterday, which was more throttle and no pumping the accelerator pump at all. So that worked. Anyway, so it ran again. So you didn't see that because the camera wasn't running. So in total, that was 7 or 8 minutes of running. So it's reasonably well warmed up. Don't really need to run it again today. I'm very pleased with it though, generally. The magnetos are working properly. I did a dead cut check and they both switch off together. Has to be quite quick. There's very little inertia in that small propeller. I flicked them off and flicked them on again before it stopped. The chain was a little bit rusty. I put quite a lot of oil on it. I'll replace the chain. There's quite a lot of things to do. Anyway, with it all switched off and the petrol is off, let's have a look around. I suppose I should unfold the wings as well. The prototype Fred, which is short for Flying Runabout Experimental Design, first flew in 1963. It was designed and built by Eric Clutton as a simple single-engine aeroplane that could be de-rigged, towed on its own wheels and stored in a single-car garage. My Fred was supplied with the tow bar, but we brought it home on a trailer. That's only the second time I've tried rigging Fred and putting the tailplane on. I haven't put the 2 pins through the fuselage that hold the tailplane on. They're 4130 steel and I need to make a pair of new ones. The wings hook on the top fitting. I'll film it again another day from close up so you can see how all the fittings line up. There's a bit of a knack to it that I just haven't quite got. I'm not sure about the name. I suppose I've been called worse, although oddly enough, often starting with the same letter. There are stainless steel wires as well that run from this fitting here down to the fuselage fittings there and there. And this aeroplane has been supplied with very nice stainless steel rods. They look great, but actually I'm not going to use them. The problem with stainless steel rods, and a few flybaby owners have found this out in the States, is that they vibrate and they break because stainless steel, although it doesn't rust, is not particularly good for dealing with fatigue cycles. I don't really like it myself for quite a lot of decent engineering reasons. So I'm going to actually replace these with 3/16 braided wire as per the original, with either turnbuckles or just twisting the wire slightly to give it the right tension into the fitting. A quick look inside the cockpit. This throttle knob amuses me. It's the kind of thing my uncle would have had on his Morris Marina in about 1975. The sort of Halford special gear stick doodah. There's a couple of batteries in the front here I need to replace. I need to mess around with a few electrical bits, because they power the cylinder head temperature, the oil temperature, and there's a voltmeter there as well, and also the rev counter there. The rest of it's normal air instruments, obviously normal old-fashioned altimeter, S-speed indicator, slip ball only, there's no turn needle on that. I think the fuel tap arrangement was stolen out of an Avro Anson. It's frozen solid. I'll take this whole panel out. It comes out very easily because this forward panel comes off with 2 clips. Obviously mag switches here. These are switches for turning on the electric instruments. Carb air, which seems to work, or carb heat to be more correct. Oil cooler appears to be slightly stuck. I haven't worked out what the cable's doing on that. Doesn't matter at the moment. And I know the choke worked because it stopped the engine earlier. There, I'm in. It's not as difficult as it might look. I can get one leg up and over, put a foot on the seat, and then sort of project head and body that way a bit, other leg up and over, swivel around on the seat and get in. I didn't film it because, well, it is actually on the iPad, but I'm not going to show you. It wasn't awful. I first got in on, I think, Sunday afternoon, when a friend of mine came over and said you really had to sit in the thing, because I hadn't. And actually, the surprising thing is it's quite comfortable. The pedals are quite a long way forward. I'm just under 6 foot tall, and I've taken my wellies off. It's quite nice being tucked in as well. My forehead is sort of level with the top of the windscreen, so I don't think that's too bad. I'll get down a bit more if one needs to. I'm sure one won't. Thought it might be a dreadful squeeze, and it isn't. So you're wondering why I bought this aeroplane. Well, in some ways, this book is to blame. I first got this book from Cranley Library, I should think early 1980s, when I was about sort of 12 or 13, cycling into the village and using the library quite a lot. And quite frankly, it was the most inspirationally, interestingly brilliant thing I'd ever seen. I was always mad keen on aeroplanes. I don't come from a flying family. Quite amusingly though, I did have a grandfather called Fred who was in the Royal Flying Corps and the early RAF. I'm going to shatter your illusions now. If you think he was sort of Captain Flashheart style, you know, raw off in his sock with camel, dice with the Red Baron, shot down sausage side, hacked his way back across the lines in time for tea and medals, then I'm sorry to say it's all quite disappointing. He never went sausage side. He never even went froggy side. I think he peeled potatoes in Hendon for most of the First World War. Anyway, I digress. So this book was rather wonderful, and still is. It's still actually a really good read. It's had a bit of a thing about a Volkswagen powered aeroplane. And of course I learnt to fly, went off working for a maintenance organisation, got checked out in a Super Cub straight away, bought an Aeronca Champ, and a couple of years later was flying DC-3s and all the rest of it. And I never did Volkswagen powered junk on the way up, so I rather fancy doing it on the way down. A couple of years ago I got quite keen about this Jodelle. It was built in the 1970s by 2 brothers who happened to share the same surname as me. I was introduced to the surviving brother by an acquaintance, on whose now disused airstrip the aeroplane is stored. Apart from an occasional clean and pumping up the tyres, very little has been done to this aeroplane since the mid-1980s. In early 2023 I spent a rather cold but enjoyable day cleaning and inspecting the aeroplane. It was just at the time I started regularly making films for this channel, and I thought the Jodelle might be an interesting project. I also used the opportunity to make a film, which I never published. I will now. There'll be a link to it in the description. Obviously I didn't buy it. It was a very well constructed aeroplane, but there were potential paperwork issues due to weight problems. It had never held a PFA or LAA permit to fly, only one issued directly by the CAA, Civil Aviation Authority, and I didn't fancy having to pay to overhaul the Lycoming 0290, which would have needed to come to pieces in any case, even though it appeared to be perfectly okay. A shame I had to walk away from the Jodelle, but I don't begrudge the day I spent working on it. It was cleaned and lots of parts were thoroughly oiled, including the engine, so hopefully someone else with maybe more money, possibly less sense, will take it on. It would be great to see it fly again, but it's one of those projects in which one will always spend far more than the aeroplane is worth. However, the idea of buying an aeroplane as a channeled project certainly didn't go away. When I saw Fred advertised on AFORS, I decided that he was the sort of aeroplane I was looking for. I'll still probably spend more money than he's worth, but on a much smaller scale. Yet another advantage in buying Fred has been this one. My wife and I offloaded him from the trailer, and since then he's been living in the yard. I placed pipe lagging over the trailing edges of the wings, you know, the stuff you put over copper pipes. That stops the poly tarps being chewed by the trailing edges, and with a blanket over the centre section and the propeller wrapped up with a towel, the whole thing can be sheeted up quite successfully. In the next few days, Fred will be in the workshop, with the wings, fuel tank and undercarriage removed. Don't miss part 2, gripping stuff. Thanks for watching.